Hi, welcome to Papa's Workshop. Today is part 2 of my two-part series on building the modern contemporary bath vanity. Now this is a video that a lot of you have asked for, so I finally got around to doing it, but this is special in the sense that the drawers for this are unlike any drawer for a cabinet that you have seen before because of the plumbing issue, and I had to work around that. So you don't want to miss this video on how I made some very unusual drawers to fit in this contemporary cabinet. So let's get started. Building the drawers for this cabinet actually creates some very unique problems. This type of design with the drawers at the top and in the middle creates a problem in the sense that I've got a sink in the way and I've also got plumbing down below. Now normally a cabinet is built where that cavity is completely open and you have a false front where the sink is. Well, I've only got the opportunity to put drawers in there. So I've got to deal with the issue with the plumbing and still build some drawers. Now one of those problems can easily be solved. I have the sink here in the shop. I can put the sink onto the cabinet and can see the bowl and be able to work the drawer around that. But the plumbing where the water line and the drain lines are, I can't. So what I did is I took some measurements as to where those are located, and I'm going to build just a real simple little foam box to simulate that plumbing and put that on the cabinet so that I'll be able to build the drawers around that. Should be an interesting challenge. Now the first thing that I did is I cut a piece of foam board, and this foam board is the height of the cabinet. This is going to be my wall over here, and this will simulate the floor. And I have the plumbing pipes somewhere in this area, and I've got the measurements. So I'm going to lay that out and then build a box and tape it to it. So from the wall itself, I need to come over about 14 inches. That's the beginning of the plumbing. And then at 24.5 is the end of the plumbing. And from the floor, it comes up 13.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is just draw a line right here. And I also know that this comes out 8 inches from the wall. So my box needs to be built to fit this area. Now I really can't have the drawers go inside of this box, because remember I have a drain line in here that goes up to the sink, and that sink is going to be over in the center. So that's going to be over in this area. Now all I have to do is tape that onto the board, and that will give me the location of the plumbing. Then I can determine how to build the drawers. Again, nothing has to be fancy about this. This just needs to be able to show where the plumbing is going to be. Now, let's take this box over and attach it to the cabinet. I have my box set up now where it's attached to the back of the cabinet, and you can see where the plumbing actually is going to run. And that is going to present the challenge with building these drawers. Now I'm going to look straight down from the top down inside of this cabinet, and you're going to see that I do have some space for a drawer. Now I went ahead and flipped the sink over so you can take a look at it. In most sinks, you have it where this surface is actually flat. That's not the case with this one. It has a nice 2-inch lip here, but then it drops down. And the problem that I have with the design of cabinet, the only place that actually sits and supports the cabinet is on the corners, and that's really not sufficient. So what I need to do is add some filler strips to be able to support the sink from this location and add that to the cabinet. And I'm going to do that on the front, sides. The back is going to be okay, but I do need to have that support on the front and the sides. Now the space that I have from the front of the cabinet to where the pipes, so I have 10.5 inches from where the back of the cabinet is on this face frame to where the plumbing is. So that gives me 10.5 inches to be able to work with. The other problem that I'm going to have is I cannot put in a drawer roller into this area. So this partition is going to have to be removed, and it's going to have to be one long drawer instead of the 2 drawers in this space. And that's kind of disappointing, but that's what needs to happen. Okay, now that I've got the sink in place, I can begin to see exactly how much room that I have to be able to work with. And you can see over here, there's not a lot of space at all. And the same thing on the other side, of course, there's very little space there. And in the front, how this sink slopes down rather quickly, there's not going to be a lot of space. But I still think I can get a drawer that will be able to go in a U shape around the sink. At least that's the plan. Down here at the bottom, I'll be able to do much more with this space. But of course, this center stile has to come out. I cut 4 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood long enough to be able to support the drawer rollers and attach to the cabinet. The width really doesn't matter. This is just a scrap piece of plywood that I have, and this is going to work fine. And I just take the tape measure, and by doing my diagonal measurement, I can split this right in half. And I'm just putting the tape measure on the corner, and I'm sliding it over to the other side at 6 inches, and I know half of that is 3. So then all I need to do is just connect the 2 points, and I have a line down the center of the plywood. And that's going to be the center point to be able to attach the drawer slides. The next thing I want to do is just go ahead and install the drawer slides. Now I've already positioned a mark exactly where it needs to be, and all I need to do is just slide it right in place, and then with a nail gun I'm going to go ahead and shoot that into position. And I think that will hold just fine. I'm putting nails in the front, and of course I'm putting nails in the back to be able to hold it exactly where it needs to be. Off camera, I went ahead and cut the 2 drawer faces. Now these drawer faces are 1/4 inch smaller than the opening, and that allows for 1/8 of an inch to be a reveal all the way around the drawer. After cutting this, I just lightly sand it, and then I'm going to use the heat seal strips to be able to cover up that rough plywood edge. This is the veneer edging that I'm using, and this is a birch material, and it has a heat strip on the back. And the only thing I needed to be able to do is cut this material just a little bit longer than the drawer face itself, and then I take my iron and be able to run it right along the edge of the material itself. And what that does, it activates the glue and adheres it right to the surface of the plywood. And this actually is a very easy process, and this little iron is the perfect size to work with. Now this heating iron is perfect for this type of an application. It's a great size, and it has the heat necessary to be able to do this, because the instructions actually call for 400 degrees, and I don't think my wife is going to like me using the regular iron that we iron our clothes with. So this is one I used when I was building the model airplanes, and it's perfect. So guys, this actually is probably close to 40 years old, but who cares? It still works, and I love it. One little tip that I can give you, as you put this strip onto the plywood, you take a little block of wood and you can actually push and rub this down onto the strip, and it really makes it adhere to that plywood even better. So don't forget that step. That will make putting this on even easier. Grab you a little scrap piece of wood and that block will really help you out. I use this all the time and it makes it where it sticks very easily, and you can put even pressure and be able to make that glue attach. And once you're finished, all you do is just take a little knife and trim off the edges, hit it with a little bit of sandpaper, and this is the result that you get. A beautiful finish that looks like solid wood. So this is a very easy way to be able to take a piece of plywood and make it look like an expensive piece of solid wood. So here's the design that I came up with. I wanted to be able to have a full drawer on the top to be able to have plenty of storage. I also need to be able to accommodate that drain. So that cutout there in the center does just that. The drain from the sink will be able to fit right into that cutout. Now, as far as the bottom drawer, this is going to be your standard rectangle, and it's going to be able to go right up to the edge of the plumbing and stop. To be able to attach all of the joints, I need a rabbet joint cut. And to do that, I raised up the saw blade to half the distance of my plywood, which is 1/4 of an inch, and I moved it over a 1/2 inch as well to be able to cut this rabbet. And as you can see, this makes a perfect joint. Now I have all of the rabbet joints cut. All of my pieces are cut to size and fit together just one last time to make sure that this is exactly the way it's going to fit together. I think this is going to be a very unique and unusual drawer, and I was excited to be able to have this part of it come together. Now, as far as assembling, this is the tricky part. Because of the unusual shape, I really had to plan out how I was going to assemble this drawer. But of course, I'm going to use plenty of glue, and I'm going to use the staples. And I used the 1-inch 18 gauge staple to be able to hold this drawer together. So with just a little bit of planning, I was able to put this together one section at a time and be able to keep it all in one piece. One of the key considerations as I was assembling this drawer is I had to make sure that everything was supported, so when I put the staples in, I wouldn't lose control and have this drawer come apart. As I was putting this drawer together, I also realized that I need to make sure that it was exactly square. And to be able to do that, the easiest way was to be able to use the bottom of the drawer itself. So with the measurements in hand, I went ahead and cut the bottom, and of course I had to cut that middle section out. Now before putting that last piece on for this drawer, I decided to go ahead and attach the bottom. I dry fit it just to make sure that everything was going to fit, and then I add the glue and put it in position. And then as I put this in position, the most important thing that I wanted to be able to consider is to be able to keep this straight and square. So I started with one corner, made sure that it was exactly in position, and then nailed that in place. Then I worked around the rest of the drawer, making sure that it was exactly in position to the edge of that bottom. Because remember, the bottom panel is the one that's actually cut square and true. So all of this drawer has to be able to match and align to this position. And then having the corners absolutely in place is critical to be able to nail it in place. After that, everything else goes together easy. Once I have this last corner stapled, then I can go ahead and nail in between and be able to secure this bottom panel to the sides. Now it's time to add that last front piece on, and of course I'm adding the glue so that it will be able to be secured in place both with the glue and with the staples. I saved this panel for last because it was a little bit more difficult to be able to put on, being that it was at a different height. But doing it this way, it did go together quite easily, and I was able to staple it in position and then just turned it over and I stapled across the bottom also. Now I threw this little jig together just out of scrap wood, and I didn't even really measure anything. But this little rascal is about 16 inches long, a little over 16 inches. This width doesn't really matter, but it's just under 3 inches. The taper on here was just because I did it. Okay, and what I'm going to do is use this little jig to be able to hold up the drawer so I can screw it in. This thickness is the 5 millimeter, and this can be a minimum of 1/8 of an inch. And that has to be according to the instructions on the drawer slides. So this is actually a little bit larger than that, and that's okay. So let me show you how this simple scrap wood jig works. See, this, all it does is just sit on here, and it sits level. And to be able to mount it, I can slip it right up there and drop it down to the face frame. And what that does, it creates a level platform. And then I'm just going to take my clamp and clamp that right in place. And that holds the drawer up as high as what I need it, and it keeps the drawer level. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright. So I'm just going to take it, set it right there, and then clamp it in place. And that's perfect. Now I'll just take the drawer and set the drawer on here. And one of the things I can do is just pull out the slide. I'm going to pull out the slide on the other side. And I'll just set the drawer on here. That will come right out. This drawer slide just comes right out to the edge, right to there. Same on the other side. And I have perfect alignment. And again, this is virtually hands-free. I'm going to go ahead and screw this in, and we'll have a drawer mounted. This really is just so simple to do that I'm surprised that a lot more people don't do this. Because I really hate having to hold a drawer, try to balance it, try to have a line measured on here. It's just a real pain, and this makes it so easy. I'm going to pull it out so I can get to the next screw. Now, let me go ahead and do the same thing to the other side now. And on this other side, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that that's flush on the end. And put my right there. And screw this in. Now, I'll remove the clamps from underneath. The easiest way that I have found to put the face of the drawers on is to actually use my little 1/8 inch gauge and slip it underneath, and then use a screwdriver and screw these screws into the holes where my handles are going to be. And that attaches this drawer front to my actual drawer. And that gives me the perfect alignment. And you can see that this is exactly the same measurement on each side. And once I have that in position and screwing this in, it makes it where it holds perfectly. And I don't have to use tape or any other crazy methods that I've used in the past. This works perfectly. And then all I have to do is just slip out the gauge and open the drawer. Once the drawer is open, I can go ahead and attach 2 screws on each side, and that will hold my drawer front on. And then I'll go ahead and drill all the way through and attach the handles. Because now this face is actually attached with the 4 screws that I have. And then I can just go ahead and remove this screw from each side and then attach the handle to it. Now I will need to pre-drill the rest of the way through. Now at this point, I'm just going to use a block as a backer in here, and I'll finish drilling all the way through. There we go. And then I'll do the same thing over here. And now it's just time to attach the handles itself. So they slip all the way through, and I can just screw that on. So this is the simplest and easiest way that I have found to be able to mount the drawer fronts, and it works every time perfectly. So now my drawer is finished. I already have this one in, and it works great. So I'm going to call this cabinet completed. All I have to do now is go and install it. Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video today. If you like the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified on the different videos that I upload. Also check out the videos over here to be able to stay up to date on the happenings in my shop. So again, thank you for watching my videos.